ladies and gentlemen, to DC vs. Marvel month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, we're checking a film from 2007. That movie is Doctor Strange. Now, I have to say right up front that in terms of Marvel's, pantheon of heroes, Doctor Strange has never really been one that has interested me much. I have tried to read a ton of Doctor Strange stories, and for every one really decent Doctor Strange story I find, there's 5 or 6 really boring ones. So the character has never really resonated with me much. I am not about to say that the character is shit. I mean, after all, he could be a lot worse. He could be like fucking Aquaman and be completely garbage. But Doctor Strange has promise, and that much is always cool. I'm certainly hoping for some of that promise to show up in this movie. I honestly don't know anything about it outside of the fact that it's animated, it's a Doctor Strange movie, it's made by Lionsgate, it came out in 2007. That, honest to God, is all the information I know about this thing. I have no idea if this movie's going to be any good at all. The only way I'm going to find out is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Doctor Strange. I will say, guys, one thing that always fascinated me about Doctor Strange was a specific part of his origin story, how he was a master surgeon until a horrible accident screwed over his hands. We just got to see that, and it was done incredibly well. I really liked the way that they handled it, and I really hope that kind of sort of, and I really hope that their handling of that is a good sign for what is to come in this movie. I have high hopes now. You know, I really was wondering why they had him breaking down the same wall day after day. Now, honestly, that it's been completely, spelled out, and Strange had to be told straight up why, it makes total sense, and my God, that was fucking awesome. It really fucking was, guys. Wow. You know, guys, I know I have spoken about my great dislike of children in the past, but Mordo just said that the only way to stop Dormammu is to kill an entire coma ward of children. That is worlds of fucked up. I understand that Mordo's a villain. At least in the proper comics, Mordo's Strange's he's one of Strange's top villains, but good lord, that is fucking dark. Holy shit, dude. Well, guys, that was Doctor Strange. Let's shut that off. Okay. Well, I will say this. The movie is not perfect. No movie ever is. It's certainly better than the last Marvel movie I watched this month, which was Planet Hulk. So that's a huge positive. Let's talk about the writing, shall we? So, I stated before that Doctor Strange, at least from my experiences with reading Doctor Strange books and all that, Doctor Strange is either done really well or really poorly. This was done incredibly well. I'm going to tell you guys, I kind of had a feeling going into this that it was going to be a Doctor Strange origin story, because naturally almost every superhero has to start with a friggin' origin story, and Doctor Strange's origin has always been a really fascinating one to look at, because for those of you who don't know, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail because a large chunk of this movie is Strange's origin, is he was a masterful surgeon who got caught in a car wreck and did tons of nerve damage to his hands, so he can no longer work as a surgeon. After trying to find a treatment for his nerves, he then goes to Tibet, and he gets trained as a sorcerer, and that helps clear up his hands and turns him into the Sorcerer Supreme. And that's kind of where the story really takes off. But it takes, and this is kind of the issue, guys, when it comes to origin films, is it takes a long time to build up to that. So then when we finally have a conflict, when we have a final closing conflict, you don't have a whole lot of time to, take care of it. And I have to stress, this movie's only an hour and 16 minutes. And about 3/4 of that is just the origin story for Strange. Roughly about 3/4. At least it felt like that. And then we finally get to the big final fight, where Strange and Wong have to fight against Mordo and Dormammu. And that's fine. It was certainly a fun, final act, but we really weren't given any, background on fucking Dormammu. I mean, well, outside of, a couple of mentions, but we never see exactly what kind of evil power he has outside of he's putting children in comas. That's really about the best he has. However, though, what is here is told incredibly well. I really did like how they slowly built up Mordo, so that way then when he turns, and that honestly is not a spoiler because Mordo's been a Doctor Strange villain for decades. So when he turns, it makes sense and it's done really, really well. And I would probably have loved all of that even more if it wasn't suspiciously similar to the live-action Green fucking Lantern movie, which I watched years ago. I believe this one actually was made first, but, I watched Green Lantern before I saw this, and there were a lot of parallels in terms of just, little things. But still, I liked this. This was written incredibly well, and if I didn't have such a sketchy record with Doctor fucking Strange comics, it would make me want to go out and buy a ton of Doctor Strange books. It's just, I don't trust the books because most of them I find kinda stink. But hey, at least this thing worked in terms of writing. This was done in a fantastic fashion. I absolutely loved the writing. Acting. Acting is decent. Nobody here, honestly, is doing a stellar job. Nobody here is just blowing it out of the fucking water. If there was any one complaint I have, it's that Kevin Michael Richardson, who's cast as Mordo, he sounds a little bit bored in quite a few scenes, which is shocking because Kevin Michael Richardson is usually the go-to guy to just turn in a fantastic showing and just kick more ass than almost the entire cast. But here he honestly is sort of the weak end of the cast. He honestly is the one who's turning in the weakest showing. Nobody else is turning in anything that is awesome and incredibly memorable. And Richardson just kind of phones it in a little bit, and that is a little bit of an issue. It's not horrible, mind you. I mean, because even honestly, when he's phoning it in, it's still at least halfway decent. But I can say with certainty that nobody here really turned in anything that I would say is ultra memorable, but everything here works, and that is like the barest minimum that I ask for from actors is that they at least put in enough effort to make shit work. And if they honestly want to go above and beyond and do better, awesome. So at least the cast here tried. That is awesome. It totally works. It's nothing ultimately special. Animation. I commented when I reviewed Planet Hulk that there was a problem involving mouths. That for some reason the animators don't know how to animate mouths and make them match what a character is saying. And that is noticeable here. It's noticeable in quite a few scenes. Probably the worst instance, and I'm going to give it a pass, and I'm going to explain why, is our main villain, Dormammu. The reason why is because Dormammu is a huge fucking, is a huge beast. So naturally, you don't want him with a really fast mouth fucking movement. It just doesn't look natural. And I am reminded of the live-action Spawn movie, when they had to essentially do the same thing in terms of their massive demon, Mal fucking Bolgia, because they weren't able to animate the mouth and make it actually follow Welker's lines in the Spawn movie because it looked freakish, it looked wrong. And I think that's kind of the case here. You really wouldn't want the, like, skeletal face of fucking Dormammu to move in perfect sync because it looks a little bit more... It looks almost a little bit more threatening that his mouth is just slowly opening and closing while he talks, even though it doesn't match what he's saying. And while I can give a pass there, I'm not going to give a pass to the multitude of human characters whose mouths are basically just flapping open and closed like a fucking puppet when they are talking. There is absolutely zero attempt at getting a whole lot of these lines to match any kind of mouth movement. There's almost nothing involving the tongue to make it look as if it's like natural speech. There honestly are a couple instances of it, and that there is why the fucked up moments stand out so much. If the whole thing didn't fucking match, that would be fine, because then it would be almost like you're watching a foreign film, and that's great. But when half of your mouth movements match perfectly and the other half don't, the half that doesn't stands out, noticeably so. And it looks really cheap. It looks really cheap and really fucked up, and god damn it, you could totally do better. This thing was done by Lionsgate. Lionsgate can do better. I've seen them do better. That part is a little bit of a shame. Now while I can comment on mouth movements being kind of fucked up, at least honestly in terms of like the CG, and there actually is a little bit of CG in this film. What is here is really decent, at least by 2007 standards. It was done incredibly well, and the CG on things like cars and like swords and all that shit looks fine. It looks really decent. And animation, when we're not talking about the mouths, looks fucking great. Like lighting, guys. Since we are talking about animation and you have to animate your lighting for these, I want to touch on that for a moment. Lighting in some of these scenes is fucking gorgeous. Like, there is a scene early on when Strange is sitting in his hospital office and his boss comes walking in, or rather the hospital fucking like admin comes in, and Steven has like, he has like slatted curtains. So we have slots of light coming in, and they're hitting everything, and it looks awesome. The only thing that kind of sort of like screws it up a little bit is the fact that we have the slotted lighting coming from the windows, and then there's shadow bouncing off of the characters, which looks like it's coming from a totally separate source, which you'd think would then kind of cancel out the, like, slots of light coming in from the window. Like, and mind you, it just sort of looked weird for, like, 5 fucking seconds, and then your brain kind of sort of, and then, at least my brain, it kind of sort of fucking, like, adjusted to it, and I was able to look at it and go, this thing looks awesome. It's just that there was still that, like, few fucking seconds of weird as I'm like, where the hell is the rest of that shadow coming from, and why isn't it screwing with the light coming from the window? At least that right there was like a minor thing with me, and I'm not about to hold it against the movie. It's just something that I noticed. Now, while I can talk about the animation being really solid, one thing I cannot talk about in a positive light is backgrounds. Holy mother of fuck. You know, when I covered Planet Hulk, one thing I gushed about was backgrounds, because they did such beautiful, like, skylines and shit, and it looked amazing. Here, we have shots that are inside of the city. The backgrounds look as if someone took a grainy photo of a New York City street and then crudely painted the fuck over it. It looks horrible. And this also includes the house. It includes the Sanctum Sanctorum itself. Even that looks cheap. Just, there's so many problems in terms of backgrounds and the way the buildings look. And it looks so cheap compared to everything else. The animation here is actually some rather high quality stuff, barring what few flaws I saw. So you have that, and then there's the problem with the backgrounds. The backgrounds look as if they were like whipped up in about 30 seconds on a budget of $30, and it looks horrible. It really stands out. And guys, it's not normal to bitch about backgrounds, but they are so horrible that they were actually distracting me from watching the scene. Because I'd be watching as two characters are fighting off like shadow beasts, and all of a sudden I would look, and then all of a sudden my eye would dart towards the background. And that happens occasionally because I kind of like to see like the detail in the background. All of a sudden, I'm transfixed on the background because the background looks like grainy dog shit. So then, I'm totally disinterested in the people fighting the fucking shadow beasts because I'm wondering how the fuck the background got fucked up that badly. So, yes, I'm going to comment on backgrounds because they were so bad that they were actually actively distractive. They were actually distracting. That is fucked, guys. So, backgrounds were certainly problematic, I will say that. Otherwise, beyond that, our sound mix here is good. Our music here is good. Guys, is there anything else to really talk about? Not totally. So guys, when all is said and done, I'm able to recommend Doctor Strange. Yes, this movie is. This movie is incredibly written. And if you can look past the flaws, and mind you, I've mentioned almost every flaw that I personally noticed. If you can look past those, there is a really solid, incredibly entertaining movie here, and it's so much fun to watch. However, if you are even more detail oriented than I am, and the problems I mentioned are going to be deal breakers for you, then you may want to pass on this one. If you can find this thing cheap, by all means pick it up. It is totally worth getting. I would not recommend spending a ton on it. I would not recommend buying it for more than like $10. Unless you're buying it in like a box set. And I'm just going to show this off on camera quick, because every single one of the Marvel movies I'm doing this month all came from this box set, which I got for, was it like $20? $20, $25, something, it was something like that. It's got 8 movies in it, guys, of which I'm covering 5 of them this month, but still, that's 8 movies for $25 or so. That is perfect. That is awesome. That right there makes this sucker absolutely worth it. So if you can find a box set like that, and I know there's a handful of Marvel box sets like that, if you can find one and it's at a decent price and Doctor Strange is in it, by all means pick it up. Otherwise, rent it. I would definitely say, at the very least, rent it or download it somewhere, because I think this might be on like Hulu or on Amazon Instant Video, or once more, if you've got one of the 4 or 5 video stores that are left in the country, by all means, go ahead and rent it out. It's totally worth checking out at least once. I certainly had a whole lot of fun watching it, and I hope that if you get around to watching it, you also have fun with it also. In fact, actually, after watching this, even though I don't trust the Doctor Strange books, again, I'm a little bit gun-fucking shy after some of the bad books I've read, I am a little bit more interested in seeing the live-action Doctor Strange movie. Mind you, I'm not, like, ultra-jazzed, holy fuck, I totally have to watch this, but my interest has grown from none to maybe at some point I might give it a watch. So, you know what? At least, honestly, there is that. At least now I've got marginal interest in wanting to watch the recent live-action Doctor Strange movie. After all, it can't be nearly as bad as that shitbag live-action Doctor Strange movie from the fucking 70s I covered. Good God, that thing was fucking terrible. Anyway, I am not going to focus on that. I am not going to let that shit bring down the fun time I had watching this. And I'm looking at the next movie I've got on the schedule. Oh boy. You know, after I'm done editing this one, I may have to get that one started, like, immediately, because I know you guys want me to cover it, and I really do want to watch it. So, yeah, that one there is going to be a whole lot of fun. But that one there is going to be for next time, guys. That is going to do it for this installment of Reaction and Review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.